I'm going to call the Board of Education meeting here on December 14th, 2020 for the Bloom Care Local School District. Mr. Bigham, would you call to order, or a roll call, please?
Mr. Abbott?
Present.
Mr. Bratton? Mr. Jimmy Johnson?
Present.
Mr. Rod Johnson?
Present.
Mrs. Sherman?
Present.
Pledge of allegiance, led by Mrs. Sherman.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Number 4, approval of the agenda. Did anyone have any questions? We do have a couple of things that we need to add, to read in.
I did not.
No, I'll look at it.
All right, perfect. All right, so on 9C, page 2, 4C, under Kristen Harlander / Sony, we're going to add Joe Woodburn beginning December 14th, 2020, up to 60 days. And then on 9C as well, page 3, number 9, it'll read the approve the following academic supplemental contracts for the 2020-2021 school year at 70%. So we'll add 70% there. Contingent that payment, etc. All right.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Abbott, second by Mr. Jimmy Johnson. Mr. Bigham?
Mr. Abbott?
Yes.
Mr. Jimmy Johnson?
Yes.
Mrs. Sherman?
Yes.
And Mr. Rod Johnson?
Yes. Number 5, approve the minutes from the November 9th, 2020 regular meeting. I did not see anything that needed to be corrected on there. Did anybody notice anything?
No.
I did
All right, perfect. I will go ahead and make this motion.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Rod Johnson, second by Mr. Jimmy Johnson. Mr. Bigham?
Mr. Rod Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Jimmy Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Abbott?
Yes.
Mrs. Sherman?
Yes.
Public participation. I'd like to call up Casey Belli.
Hello.
You can come over here and stand up.
You can right here.
Yeah.
Oh,
I can see it.
good evening. I'm Casey Belli, Andrew Belli's mom. I'm a huge fan of our school district. I don't want to present anything that's not of that. I've had a lively, somewhat heated discussion with Mr. Hahn. I don't know, what was it, I lost track of the exact day, but a couple weeks ago, I moved my son to online schooling before the school closed. I mean, it was I'm a small business owner, so my time is trying to crunch a bunch of stuff in one day. So it was a lot for one day to go through a principal, guidance counselor, superintendent to get through that. It was a lot. But I understand why and why that needs to be done. I commend our school district for, making efforts to get our kids, back in the classrooms. We all want our kids in the classroom. These are extraordinary times. And, we're living under extraordinary pressure coming from multiple directions. I get that. I do. But I've been watching closely, up to where we are now with returning, pulling the students out of class, and I thought it was way too delayed. And I think that, I've read the superintendent emails and support for keeping our students in school as long as possible, and low-income residents and all of that. I get that as well. In citing studies as far as children being less likely to get very sick with the virus. I think what the shortcoming in that line of thought is that in order to produce results like other places that have had less community spread than in the schools as opposed to in the community, you have to have rapid testing. That has to be a huge component and is a logical, thing to it. Trying to go back and operate without rapid testing, and it doesn't make sense. There are probably other, 3 or 5 other things that we could be doing. I realize budgetary constraints. I know that, school funding was possibly being pulled from Washington. I get all of that, but still, we've got to approach this as smartest way possible. Anyway, the way that we were proceeding before the schools closed, does it really consider enough, teachers who would be at sick to get possibly, COVID, or parents, our kids are probably going to recover, but that doesn't mean there could be very dangerous carriers to more susceptible parts of our, I thought we could have done a much better job with this, collectively. And so, that's just it. The parents and the teachers, I think, teachers especially, because they're also frontline. They're our frontline, like the hospitals. And I don't think there's very much consideration for it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Hahn, would you please provide the update from the?
Yeah, I was
Performing Arts?
notified late this afternoon that the music boosters and performing arts were unable to be here this evening. Just some things that they would like me to share with all of you. If you look at they emailed me this document here, but they just, some highlights so far. It's been, as you know, a very challenging year to do anything positive, but we have been able to find some things. And we've been able to continue to provide opportunities in the performing arts in our band program for those students that are interested and their families that choose to have their children participate in those activities. And they've been able to do quite a few things. Obviously, they had to adapt early. They had to find ways to do performances for their families. They ended up, because they were not permitted to travel to away football games, which was a league decision and recommendation by the Ohio Department of Health and the Ohio High School Athletic Association. They did provide several performances for boys and girls at soccer games, at home games, JV football home games. They did a parent senior show, and they also did a virtual performance for the Fairfield County Fair in October. And then they had a Last Blast concert as well. They had originally scheduled a holiday program that they will have to be doing virtually. Again, they're trying to find as many opportunities as they can for students. They wanted to make sure that the board knew how much the Performing Arts program appreciated the allocation of some permanent improvement money in the spring for additional instruments for the band program. And I hope that that is something that we can certainly continue on an annual basis as we continue to look at our spending. So again, they just wanted to share some of the good things that took place this fall. They did perform at all the home football games, and they got to go to the state semifinal football game as well. But the numbers in the band, in the middle school band program and the high school program, they did increase this year in spite of COVID. So that was a good thing that program and more kids continue to be involved in activities. So those were some of the updates, and I'll gladly try to answer any questions if you have any of them. But that's kind of where we are right now with the boosters. And all the boosters have kind of struggled, athletic and music boosters, due to the revenue being reduced. Due to participation or spectators being allowed at sporting events. So, we're down this winter, the boosters, the music boosters, they do some of the basketball concessions. There's only 2 people allowed per player. They'll make $35 in a night. They have to find somebody to work that. It's almost just not cost effective, really. So That's kind of where we are, so.
Will they be working the high school basketball games or not?
They are,
Oh, they
yeah,
are,
but
okay.
they don't know how much longer they're gonna continue to do
Be
that.
able to do it?
Yeah, some schools are not doing any concessions, there's just not enough people there,
Right.
so.
Well, if we're all positive, that's great.
Can you forward me that? Can you forward me that?
Sure, yeah.
Have you talked to Mr. Falvo in regards to where they're at with their uniforms? I know that was one of his topics.
Yeah, actually Travis and I met with the boosters, the treasurer and the president, and they were able to proceed. We were able to allocate some Pepsi money.
Yeah.
Advance that.
They had enough there, plus with their own funds that they were able to,
That's great news.
yeah.
Good. Great.
Any other questions for Mr. Hall?
Not this time.
All right, number 7, treasurer's recommendations and reports. Mr. Bigham.
Okay, item A is approve the November financials for a total expense $11,417,855.48, with just a little over $7.2 million in the consortium. Not a lot of activity in really November or December, revenue-wise. We do have quite a bit, even in the pandemic, a lot of salary expenditures in November with all the fall supplementals being paid out. So it's good that we're still under budget, forecasted budget as of now. Carryover again with the low revenue months starting to dip down a little over 4.4 million. Really don't have anything else with the financials. The audit, as you have gotten a couple of emails from the state auditors, is commencing right now for fiscal 20. So this will just be through the June 30th of 2020 that they're auditing. From the email that was received today, we don't need an entrance or an exit conference, so I'll keep you updated. Hopefully they're able to stay on their timeline and be able to issue a report in February, but it's a routine, regular annual audit, so I will keep you all updated. But if you do receive additional emails, it'll either be from Breanne Williams or Don Graber, so you'll know that they're legitimate. Any questions on the November financials or checks written during the month?
No. All right, may I get a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Mrs. Sherman, second by Mr. Abbott. Mr. Bigham.
Mrs. Sherman?
Yes.
Mr. Abbott?
Yes.
Mr. Jimmy Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Rod Johnson?
Yes.
Item B is approve a resolution providing for the issuance of not to exceed $2,530,000 school improvement refunding bonds, Series 2021. This is kind of a fancy attorney's language of just basically giving us the option. It does not lock us into, if the rates aren't favorable, to refund a portion of our bonds that were originally used to build this facility. They've already been refunded in 2013, and we have the ability, based upon some call options, to refund a portion, probably more toward January would be when we were able to issue these. It's just like refunding a mortgage or anything like that. It would save the taxpayers if we're able to get a lower interest rate. That'll be enable us to roll back the millage needed to pay back this portion of the bonds a little quicker. So we just kind of want to explore that option and asking for board approval to start the process.
Any questions? Get a motion, please.
So moved. Second.
Motion made by Mr. Abbott, second by Mr. Jimmy Johnson. Mr. Bigham.
Mr. Abbott?
Yes.
Mr. Jimmy Johnson?
Yes.
Mrs. Sherman?
Yes.
Mr. Rod Johnson?
Yes.
And finally, we asking to approve a change order in the amount of $121,851.36 for additional classroom furniture in the new elementary school building. We went over this at the October planning meeting. We are only authorized to sign off on change orders up to $50,000, so we do need board approval for this. Again, we talked about all 48 classrooms. That when we changed that was not in our initial budget through Summit. So certainly think this is a worthwhile investment to make sure that all the classrooms are furnished properly.
Where does this put us at an actual overage on change order, or what dollar amount?
This was already figured into when we
The last one.
met. We're right at the contingency.
Right there.
We're right there pretty much. We haven't touched any of the interest earnings. So that's any additional changes
since the last budget summary, it actually increased a little bit. What we're under,
Yeah.
that actually went up because the kindergarten playground, and that came back, the change order for that was changed from 54,000 to 39,000,
Nice.
because there was some concrete changes and things, so it actually saved us, we got a credit on that,
Right.
so it actually looks a little bit better. Overall, the project still is around 240,000 under budget, yeah, and then you got the interest money that we've talked about as
Right.
well.
Awesome. Good news.
Any other questions?
No?
All right, I'll go ahead and make this motion.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Rod Johnson, second by Mrs. Sherman. Mr. Bigham?
Mr. Rod Johnson,
Yes.
Mrs. Sherman,
Yes.
Mr. Abbott,
Yes.
Mr. Jimmy Johnson.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you.
Mr. Bigham.
Yep.
Number 8, old business. We have nothing under that to discuss this evening. Number 9, superintendent's recommendations and reports. Mr. Hahn.
Okay, we want to start off with something positive for a change with the way things have been the past 10 months. There's plenty of positives, but sometimes in all this, we get caught up that our students are here and they're learning and they're doing a lot of great things. And one thing I wanted to point out was Mrs. Talarico, one of our middle school language arts teachers, shared a project that her class was doing. And it was based upon the story from Brian's song, which is about a Chicago Bears football player, Gil Sayers, and a good buddy of his. And it was about a story of kindness and helping people. And the students took it upon themselves to come up with project ideas about ways they could spread kindness and create just a better world. We all know right now the world sometimes doesn't seem so kind out there. And the fact that our students are working with their teachers, being led by our teachers, and the students are taking ownership to provide more kindness with each other and make our community a kinder place. I wanted to share some of the ideas that they came up with and things that they did as a result of after reading this story, Brian's song. So they painted rocks. This is just some of them, not all of them. They painted rocks with kind messages and hid them around the community for people, including on our school grounds. They placed American flags and replaced broken flags of fallen veterans at graves in local cemeteries. They wrote thank you cards to different teachers. They volunteered, a student volunteered at a local animal shelter. They put together and delivered bags of necessities for homeless people. They made a compliment box, and the students can give each other compliments. They had a snowflake project where they made snowflakes and delivered them to Nationwide Children's Hospital in Columbus for kids to hang up on their windows in the hospital. They designed and hung posters with positive messages around the school. They put kind messages on the desk of fifth graders who are kind of new to the middle school to make them feel more comfortable. They made goodie bags for first responders and nurses and delivered them to Fairfield Medical Center. So those are just some of the things that our 7th grade students did as a result of reading this story. And I thought it was just a good thing to be able to share with all of you so you're aware of that. But Mrs. Talarico obviously should be commended for leading the students in that. Construction update, I try to keep you guys updated every week. I share the field reports with you. The most recent field report from Friday showed some pictures and some of the things going on in Area A, which is really our kindergarten and 1st and 2nd grade area. The brick is being completed on the outside. That brick needs wash there, but it's being completed. They finished the TPO roofing above the stairways. They're also drying in the gym and cafeteria roof with the TPO. It's a low slope roof. Ceiling grids are going in. You've seen pictures of all the cabinets in the kindergarten and 1st grade section going in. They're starting a lot of cabinetry work in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade area as well. The front of the school, they're building on the admin area and the entrance. They wanted to get this brickwork on the front done before they put this section on, and you can see how it's being built out here, some of the office areas. On the 5th grade, 4th and 5th grade area, they're drywalling the walls in between the classrooms. You can see the spray foam insulation, but they started the brickwork. They started the brickwork on the 3rd through 5th grade section down low here is what they're trying to show you. And then the student dining area, you can see all the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing rough-ins up here above. And that's in student dining. And then, as I said, the spray foam on the outside, and then they'll start getting the brickwork done on the outside of the gym and cafeteria there. So that's where we are with construction. With COVID, obviously, I keep you guys updated daily with what's going on when we have a case, where we stand. The number of cases right now in the district, 12 active cases, 9 students throughout the district, 3 staff. Many of those students, I believe 5 of them, of the 9, were in quarantine, and in quarantine because of a positive parent in their family, and then the children became positive as well, and the family had them tested, or they became symptomatic, and then the families had them tested. Right now, there's 24 students, grades K to 8, quarantined, 111 at the high school, which prompted our change at the high school. Some of those quarantines are ending, and we're getting some students back. I know 8 come back theoretically in terms of their quarantine ending today. So the active cases, the percentage of active cases out of 2,358 students and staff members right now, it's just about 0.5% at BC. In the county, it's 1.67%. That's about 3.2 times higher. Some big issues to decide on as we, obviously we want to get through this week. And the high school, obviously the students are more active, 16, 17, 18-year-olds is where we see some of those cases at the high school. And work with the nurses daily. They keep me informed. Our nurses have done an outstanding job. But by the 30th, I want to make a decision, obviously get input from the board. I actually do receive a lot of feedback from teachers as well, and emails that I've shared with many of you and our teachers. People have different opinions about this pandemic. We know that, and that has gone on for months, but there's a lot of teachers that email me, and especially last week, and are happy about their children going to school and happy to be here and working. And I was in all the buildings today and talked to teachers, and they're doing a heck of a good job, and I'm very proud of them and proud of our community, proud of our school district. And this is hard. We'll keep taking one day at a time and look at the data. And as I said, we'll make changes as we need to. And there was a reason why late last week I made the decision that I did. And I kept you guys informed about it, but when you got 20% of your building out, it's not, the continuity of instruction just wasn't good with the number of students out, so we had to make a change at that time. And you got some options. There are a lot of options going in after Christmas. I mean, we could, after the winter break, we could remain online through the end of the first semester. We could remain online through the end of January, remain online through President's Day. We could look at hybrid as well as any of those scenarios. We just have to see how things go. We're gonna look at the county data. As you know, we've never said that we're automatically going to change just based upon the county data, but the county actually dropped back down a little bit on their weekly public health advisory system. So we'll just kind of keep an eye on things. I want to make a decision around the 30th about what we're going to do, and I've communicated that with our staff and with our families. So other things, Cut Patterson, the school funding, House Bill 305 passed the House. This would be a huge relief for our school district and really help us out, help all school districts to have an actual funding formula that we can plan on, that helps Travis with the 5-year forecast, removes the caps. It is expensive. It's going to cost Ohio about $2 billion over 6 years in its current state. I don't expect the Senate to move on it. I've talked with Senator Schaefer, emailed him, talked to Representative LaRae. Obviously, huge support in the House, but the Senate's dragging their heels. I don't think they're going to do anything before the end of the year. They think they can take it up in January and February with the new General Assembly, and hopefully some form of the Cut Patterson bill gets approved. So that's really it. Any questions about anything here?
No, I'll just say that Mr. Conrad and Mr. Weiscarver did a great job. I thought relaying the message, laying the plan out from a remote learning perspective. I thought that was great that they sent that out pretty quick, so kudos to them.
Yeah, good.
What's the feedback been like for the teachers at the high school?
The engagement.
This is different than the hybrid went, and it was different. than
Yeah,
last
well,
time, so.
a lot of things are different. One, in the spring, we were told it was gonna be a couple weeks.
Right.
And then it turned into the rest of the year. That actually, it was extended, to April 1st, and then it got extended to the end of the year. So we were all scrambling in terms of professional development. Teachers really didn't have a good understanding of the virtual instruction and how to even set up virtual sessions, interact with it. I think we all have learned a lot about that in the last 10 months. But most importantly, we had set up more accountability for everybody. There's a set schedule every day. The students, we take attendance every class period. The teachers are instructing virtually every day. They're on there. What they don't do, what teachers don't do, I mean, they don't have lesson plans, virtual lesson plans for March 17th right now.
Right.
You know what I mean? But in the event that we had to shut down, within one day, they were all ready to go. And on Thursday, they interacted on the first day that we shut down. They told the students how to access the learning platforms, what the day was going to be like, and then the next day, we were ready to teach and provide instruction. So far, the feedback's been good. I've walked around on the first day. The principals were doing virtual walkthroughs. I walked into classrooms, saw the students interacting, saw the teachers teaching, and I think we're a lot better at this than we were in the spring.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I saw you pop into Cole's class.
And who?
Cole.
Yeah.
I forget what class it was.
Yeah.
I was like, Mr. Hahn's on.
Yeah.
So that was really cool. I thought that was great.
Yeah. So any questions about the update? Okay, let's move on to 9B, students and programs. Number 1, approve a list of 169 seniors for graduation on Sunday, May 23rd, 2021, pending successful completion of all coursework and school requirements. What that graduation will look like at this point, we have no idea. Just depends on where the virus is at that time. So,
Any questions in regards to that?
No.
Can I get a motion, please?
So moved.
Oops.
Who was it first? I'm sorry.
Second.
Mr. Abbott, Mr. Sherman, you second?
Sure.
Motion made by Mr. Abbott, second by Mrs. Sherman. Mr. Bigham?
Mr. Abbott?
Yes.
Mrs. Sherman?
Yes.
Mr. Jimmy Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Rod Johnson?
Yes.
okay, 9C, personnel and employment. Number 1, approve the substitute list. Number 5, for December 2020 as submitted by the Fairfield County Educational Service Center. Number 2, approve the following classified substitutes for the 2021 school year pending receipt of background checks for Lisa Johnson, Mary Bosman, Abby Luckhop, and Hayden Morris. Number 3, approve the following request for FMLA intermittent leave of absence for up to 60 days or upon expiration of the FFCRA, whichever comes first, for Tyler Clark and Mandy Brenneman. Number 4, approve the following FMLA leave of absences for Wanda Mann, beginning December 7th, 2020, for up to 60 days. B, Kristen Harlander, beginning on or about January 12th, 2021, for up to 60 days. And that we are reading in. C, Joe Woodburn, beginning December 14th, 2020, for up to 60 days. Number 5, approve the following requests for an unpaid leave or dock day. That would be 2 days for Danielle Louie on December 8th and 9th, 2020. Number 6, approve the request for unpaid childcare leave of absence for Janine Walker to begin at the end of the FMLA leave of absence for the remainder of the 2021 school year. Number 7, approve the employment of Megan Mathias as a long-term substitute teacher for Kristen Harlander at the primary and intermediate school, effective on or about January 12th, 2021 through approximately February 9th, 2021. On the next page, number 8, approve the following field experience and student teaching requests for the 2021 school year pending timely receipt of background checks. That would be Anna Marie Dinan from Capital University with Jessica Roberts at the intermediate school from January 18th, 2021 through March 12th, 2021. 8B, Anna Marie Dinan from Capital with Julie Ebert at the primary school from March 15th, 2021 through May 4th, 2021. And number 9, approve the following academic supplemental contracts for the 2021 school year at 70%, contingent that payment shall be made, provided that the board is permitted to and holds the pupil activity in light of illness, COVID-19, and Ohio High School Athletic Association and state and local precautions, orders, and guidance. Partial performance of duties shall be paid on a prorated basis following verification to the treasurer from the principal or athletic director of the portion of the duties completed by the supplemental contract holders as presented A through C.
All right, any questions, Mr. Hahn? All right, may I get a motion, please? I'll second. Motion made by Mr. Jimmy Johnson, second by Mr. Rod Johnson. Mr. Bigham?
Mr. Jimmy Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Rod Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Abbott?
Yes.
Mrs. Sherman?
Yes.
Okay, D, under contracts and agreements, approve participation in the Ohio School Board Association's Ohio Policy Services for online policy website updating, hosting, and the PDQ subscription effective January 1st, 2021 through December 31st, 2021. And number 2, approve an MOU for the Every Child Succeeds Act with Fairfield County Protective Services. That's it.
Okay. Any questions in regards to those contracts? All right, I'll go ahead and make a motion.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Rod Johnson, second by Mr. Jimmy Johnson. Mr. Bigham?
Mr. Rod Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Jimmy Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Abbott?
Yes.
Mrs. Sherman?
Yes.
Okay, nothing under E, and nothing at this time under personnel resignations and retirements.
All right, thank you, Mr. Hahn. All right, moving on. Number 10, new business. A, approve the following policies for a first reading as presented, 1 through 10. Any questions? All right, may I get a motion, please?
So moved.
Well, we got to
So
do
we got to be on the next page.
Oh, there is B, I'm sorry, I got
Yep.
that, I see that. All right, so before we get to B, I'll have a little discussion here. What we've done in the previous years that Mr. Abbott and I have been on the board is typically when we move into the organizational meeting in January, the residing president is usually the one that's recommended to be the president pro tempore. So does anybody have any questions or concerns? I know we got 2 new members here, it's gone through this first time.
It's really for the continuity of the
Yeah.
meeting until the board elects a new president if the board chooses to.
Right.
So it just keeps the flow a little bit better at the organizational meeting.
So do I need to make a nomination?
No, we don't need to make a nomination. We can just, if
Read
you guys
it in.
agree to it, and just fill me in on this one. All right, so B, approve Mr. Rod Johnson as president pro tempore to preside over the organizational meeting and all the other meetings prior to the election of a new president.
Sound good.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Abbott, second by Mrs. Sherman. Mr. Bigham?
Mr. Abbott?
Yes.
Mrs. Sherman?
Yes.
Mr. Jimmy Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Rod Johnson?
Yes. All right, number 11, board reports and information. A, the Board of Education liaison updates. Mr. Abbott, Mr. Johnson, facility management.
Nothing
Pretty
further.
much we got everything from Mr. Hahn. You guys know about that. Number 2, personnel and labor management. Mr. Jimmy Johnson.
Nothing new at this point, other than what they're going through.
All right, perfect. Number 3, OSBA representative, Mrs. Sherman, Mr. Johnson. No real updates. I think we all get our little emails from them.
Yep.
Nothing significant this time. Number 4, policy, Mr. Abbott, Mrs. Sherman.
We just did that on tonight. Good.
Obviously, first
2
reading.
weeks, what was it, a week ago or,
Yeah.
a week ago, we just had a policy.
All right. Number 5, safety, health, and wellness, Mr. Abbott, Mr. Jimmy Johnson.
It's every day.
Yes.
It's an update
Shout out to
every
the
day.
nurses who are dealing with all that
Yeah.
Yep.
contract.
Number 6, finance, Mr. Brown, Mr. Johnson. Just went over last board meeting in regards to our 5-year forecast and stuff, so nothing at this time. All right. B, upcoming PTO booster Board of Education meetings. 12/21, obviously through 1/1 will be winter break and no school. January 11th, Board of Education organizational and regular meeting here where we're at today. Also on that same date, athletic boosters meeting will be in the cafeteria here at the middle school. And then on the 12th, the music boosters meeting will be at 6:30 in the high school media center.
Did
Any
everybody
questions?
see that the PTO did the popcorn and hot chocolate for the middle school today? You guys all see that?
Why, I'm sorry.
The PTO did hot chocolate and popcorn for the middle school.
Oh.
That was super cool.
Yeah.
They just, something to bring cheer, so
Great
I
job.
thought that they can still be an active organization is fantastic.
Yeah, most definitely. All right, number 12, adjourn. May I get a motion, please?
So moved.
Motion made by Mr. Abbott, second by Mr. Jimmy Johnson. Mr. Bingham?
Mr. Abbott?
Yes.
Mr. Jimmy Johnson?
Yes.
Mrs. Sherman?
Yes.
Mr. Rod Johnson?
Yes.
6:30.
Time out, 6:30.